Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Video Mail for the week of March 14th, 2011. Thank you to the new members for joining the site. Thank you to the old members for all your support. I'm still having a fantastic time. It's been great. This is a special week. I'm going to be putting a little news post up inside the members area. Look for that. I'm looking for testimonials. If you could write a little bit of what you think of the site, hopefully it's positive. But even if it's you have some criticism and some feedback of stuff you'd like to see, then you can also participate. But what I like is just like one paragraph. And if you could send a small photo that I can put next to it, and your location, like where you're from, and I'm going to put these together and put them on the front page so that people outside the members area can see, all the fun we're having inside the members area. If you do this, if you send me a testimonial for the site, I will give you 5 days free. So you can get, basically it's an extra video mail for free on the subscription side. So anyway, why not, right? It just take 5 minutes of your time. I'll give you a 5-day bonus on your subscription, and there you go. So it'd be a win-win for everybody. But thank you. Look out for that little news post. I'll probably send an email asking for these as well, so look for that in your inbox. Make sure you've added webmaster@kennyroy.com to your email whitelist so that you do get notices when I send them out. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. Okay, let's get to the question. This week's question is, this is a great question. I think that the terminology of animation is very confusing because that you have your principles, you have there's 12 of those, you have dozens of other surrounding topics and terminology that it all can kind of get muddled and confused. And then on top of that, you have Maya or whatever program you're using, you have that specific software's basically terminology for certain technical things. So there's so much to learn, right? But I think that these are good to just really run through quickly because of how it affects workflow. Again, I'm Mr. like workflow. So if understanding these deeper is going to help you with workflow, that's really what I want to do. Okay? So let's just start from the top. Extremes. What are extremes? Extremes are when in the middle of your animation you need to hit the most extreme pose in order to give the strongest impression. For instance, if a tiger is leaping into the air, the extreme will be that really crunched up anticipation, and then when the tiger is as stretched as it possibly can be, like with the tiptoes of on the ground and its paws out in the air. Okay, that's an extreme, right? Why? Because you can't go any further than that. It might be a pose that you've thumbnailed. It very well could be. But the thing that distinguishes an extreme is that it's almost like you couldn't go any further if you wanted to. Okay? So you really want to hit those extremes. Because in animation, if you're not exaggerating, you're not doing it right. Exaggeration is one of the 12 principles, isn't it? So if you are into getting the most impact from your animation, and who's not, right? Then you really want to be looking out for hitting extremes. Where are they? How much further can I push this? And etc. Okay? So that's what an extreme is. Now, storytelling poses and golden poses, I haven't actually heard these two as being a different thing. So basically, storytelling poses and golden poses are your main poses that actually advance the story, advance the plot, advance the character arc. All right, how do they do that? Well, they have body language, They have rhythm, and they take into consideration composition and silhouette. They are the poses that if you had your way, you would hit and you would move into and out of absolutely perfectly without having to adjust or change anything about how much information you're getting out of those poses. Really, workflow is about communication, because we want to get the most communication for the least amount of work, right? Without being lazy, right? So if you have extremely strong golden poses, then that's how you're going to do that. So again, your workflow should include thumbnails. It should include planning, some sort of planning process if you're using reference video or something, but some way so that you can identify your golden poses. Maybe you freeze frame on your reference video, something. I like thumbnailing. I think that drawing is extremely important. So in this piece of animation from the cartoony lecture, I like going back to this because it kind of has a lot in it. This would be definitely a storytelling pose. We have the angry face is contributing to this pose. We have obviously this extremely strong line of action forward in his body. There's a huge amount of force forward. The silhouette is very attractive. It's kind of, it has that that rhythm of the curved and straight. It works very, very well, and we can tell exactly what he's trying to do. He's lunging forward. So this would be definitely a storytelling pose, okay? And this is certainly one of the poses I would have in a thumbnail form before I started any animation, okay? Now, the difference between breakdowns, in-betweens, and secondary keys is very subtle, but again, it's very important, especially for workflow. So a breakdown and an in-between, I actually haven't ever heard of secondary keys. It may be something that has to do with secondary motion, not secondary action. If you don't know the difference between secondary motion and secondary action, check out the secondary lecture that's in the store. But if secondary key has to do with secondary motion, then I can understand how you would want to, in terms of your workflow, save that until you're animating basically straight ahead to move out of blocking plus. So if it's a tail has secondary motion on it. Basically overlap is on a tail normally. Little doohickeys on Scooby-Doo, we had this. We had a necklace Scooby-Doo wears, like that little gold chain that has an S on it. And so, we had to, after our shot was done and the performance was there, we always had to go back in and animate the silly tag wiggling back and forth. So maybe that's what the question is asking about secondary keys. But really for workflow, breakdowns and in-betweens need to really be discussed. This is the difference in terms of workflow. Whenever, and let's look at the graph editor here. Whenever Maya gives you your interpolation, that's an in-between, okay? Right off the bat. It's not the opposite isn't true, and I'm not saying like, oh, that's the definition of it, but that's one way you know, okay? So for instance, on this rotate X and on the spine, this key right here, we have a key on frame 14 right here. Okay, we have a key right here and we have a key right here. Because Maya is interpolating this right here, these are all in-betweens. Imagine Maya, or any software you're going to use. I'm going to say Maya just because it rolls off the tongue and I can't stop that. Any software you use, imagine it is like this moron that works at your studio. And you're a traditional animator, and you keyed this pose, and you're super happy with it. You're like, yeah, this pose is dope. Look at that. Yeah, fly through the air. Yeah. Okay. So, and then you hand your, 15, 20 drawings for the scene to Maya. And Maya says, okay, here I go. And then it goes off and comes back, and you look at it, and you're like, oh my God, you in between this completely linearly, completely robotic. There's nothing in here. Maya, you're so dumb. He's like, oh, shucks, and then he goes off. All right. So What an in-between is literally just the motion in between frames. An in-between can be adjusted and tweaked to give better impact, knowing what the fundamentals are. So I would say that a breakdown is when you have decided to tweak it or change the pose in between, that's where the word comes from, in between your golden poses, but with a fundamental in mind. Meaning, if there's a pose right here and then a pose right here, and you go like this, all right, what did you do? You thought, oh, he needs to anticipate. So you just added a breakdown right here, and then you went into your next pose. Now let's say you instead went like this. Well, then what did you just did? You just had a little bit of follow through, right? So an in-between, when you take what is in between that you're given and you apply the fundamentals and improve on the fundamentals, and mostly with Maya or any computer program, it's arcs that you're improving, because you get these stupid, linear, ugly, disgusting in-betweens no matter what for free with Maya, right? So normally it's arcs that you're messing with. Okay? So let's take a look here and try to find an in-between. I know I'm going to find some when he's bouncing up and down like this. Here we go. All right, so the head, all right, perfect. Look at the rotate channel, rotate X, which is basically head bobbing up and down in this section right here. As he's landing, his head is overlapping. Boom, right here, frame 54, his hand hits, and then boom, his head has to bob downwards. All right, see that? Boom. So when I was animating this is not a golden pose. I was animating this. This is very straightforward. There's very few storytelling poses in this scrambly section right here. Okay? Very few. But when I was animating, just that little bit of overlap I put on the head, that designates that frame as a breakdown. What you're doing is you are breaking down the motion into its fundamental parts, its component parts. And you're asking yourself, what is the fundamental that applies right here? All right? So let's tie this all back into workflow. Okay? You have your storytelling poses, and that's probably what you want to, in your workflow, add first. Okay? Your character standing, hitting a strong pose, and then I don't know, they say something and they realize that, oh, I've done something wrong, okay? And then they go into this sad pose. So you have like two main golden poses. Like angry, like, hey, you, blah, 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 and then, oh, I shouldn't have said that, all right? When you key those and you have, everything is the pose and everything is on balance and the weight looks good and whatever, and then that interpolation that you get for free, that's an in-between. An in-between is any frame in between your storytelling poses. The process of breaking down is when you go into blocking plus. And what that is that you're adding all of the fundamentals and all of your understanding of how the in-between, that stupid old Maya from your studio, brings the dumb in-betweens back to your desk, right? You're breaking down and improving on what you're given. And at the end of blocking plus, basically every single breakdown should be in there, meaning that tiny little adjustment can still be adjusted, and that's what polish is. So from blocking to blocking plus is when you're adding the breakdowns, taking the crazy interpolated and boring in-betweens and turning them into breakdowns where needed, improving, adding overlap, adding follow-through, slow in and slow out, improving all these things, right? Then as you move out of blocking plus into polish, they're all there. And my workflow is to treat those little things like sliders. Like, I want a little bit more here and a little bit less there. And I know from what I've created that I can do that. So if I want a little bit more overlap right here, I don't even have to think, I don't even have to look in the panel. I can go directly to the graph editor and say, okay, let's just overlap it twice as much. Boom. All right, now let's see what it looks like. It's pretty good. Maybe it's a little too much. Oops. Yeah, why not? I like this new level, right? So you're giving yourselves, in the process of breaking down those in-betweens, you're giving yourself all of the tools and all the little places, access points into your animation that in the end you're going to tweak, like a mixer at a mixing board. You know, just tweaking the little levels, okay? And that's what Polish is. Polish, I keep on saying, Polish is not a continuation of Blocking Plus, because if you're still adding breakdowns, you're still Blocking Plus. Polish is where they're all in there, and now you say, all right, I'm going to get in and I'm going to tweak everything that I've already added to be the perfect blend of impact and engaging quality, but also not losing my composition and silhouette and pose and all these things. Okay? And what you'll notice is that as you're doing that, you'll move into and out of your golden poses. And what will happen is you'll have to tweak those, and those will get changed a little bit. So that's kind of the push and pull that happens in animation. So real quick to run through. Extremes are basically like this would be an extreme. On this shot. So he's running out and he shoots his leg. This is an extreme as well, right? Is this necessarily a pose that I would thumbnail? It might not be. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it is hitting an extreme pose that can't be pushed any further for the purpose of impact. And you should get as many of these into your animation as you can. Okay? That's all extreme is. Storytelling poses and golden poses, same thing. It's just those highly communicative poses that have body language and force and there's a really strong implied gesture in the pose. Okay. Secondary keys. I've never heard of a secondary key, but I think it has to do with secondary motion, and those should be saved. We're talking about workflow for last. And then finally, breakdowns and in-betweens. In-betweens is what you get for free. It's just in between your storytelling poses. Breakdowns is when you see an in-between you don't like, and then you add an access point for tweaking later in Polish. Okay? So I really like that question. I love questions that I can tie back into workflow. All right? Please, if you haven't watched the workflow lecture from January, I've started a shot that I'm going to finish soon, and we're going to walk all the way through my workflow. But please check it out if you haven't already, because it talks a lot about this kind of stuff as well. Okay. Again, look for that email that's going to be asking for the testimonials. You get 5 days free for doing that. And if you want free days, it's no easier than just telling a friend to sign up on the site. You automatically get credited with the free time if you refer another member. So please keep that up. And finally, definitely send more questions to be answered in the Ask Video mail. Send those questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I read them all. I try to get to as many as I can, and I'm just having a blast. I'm really, really appreciative you guys being here. It means a lot to me, and I hope we just continue and grow together. Okay? So, good luck with your work, and as always, rock on.